Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's episode. I am absolutely thrilled to welcome Nick Herinckx. He is the founder and CEO of Oxygen. It is a management training company that helps scaling organizations build confident, effective managers. He also works directly with CEOs through his executive coaching practice, Bluefield, and has coached over 100 CEOs across multiple stages of growth. A repeat founder, Nick has built and exited two high growth companies. And outside of work, he's a dad, plays the guitar, and a lifelong learner. I'm thrilled to have Nick here today because this is part of, if you've been listening for a while, this is part of a series that I am doing with people who are just really active and who have a point of view on leadership today, because I think there's a lot going on. For the past 5 years, it's been a crazy world that we're living in. And so I wanted to have Nick on for a very open, honest, authentic conversation. So, Nick, welcome. I'm absolutely thrilled that you are here.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So, let's dive in. I would love, first of all, just to know, so based really on your experience and the work that you do with CEOs, what is the hardest part of being a CEO today in 2026?
Wow. Yeah. What a question. And I think the key is today, though, like what's different, because so much is changing, especially with AI, and the financial markets are always shifting with kind of the new hot thing, which can make being a CEO and leading your organization a real challenge. And I think especially today, I'm seeing really two things that are different now than when I, let's say, first really started coaching, in like around 2018. And that is, it seems harder than ever to stay focused on your strategy. And
Mm,
so I'm seeing a lot of pressure that CEOs are having right now based off AI, and to constantly be relitigating their strategy. I mean, we're not even finished with Q1 and already CEOs are, oh, should we change this or do this? And it's stalling delivery and execution. And so one of the hardest things I'm seeing is just balancing that. Hey, how do we just stay focused so that we can scale and grow and execute and succeed? But also,
mm,
how do I make sure I'm staying open enough to keep up with where things are going? And I think that the second thing I'm seeing that's also really hard is you want to skate to where the puck is going, but the technology is not there yet. So I'm
yeah.
also seeing a lot of CEOs and companies really leaning in hard with things like artificial intelligence and how to incorporate that into their products. Also work with a lot of founders in some of the fastest growing AI companies. And
Mm,
what they're really building is building towards where things are going, even if the technology can't actually support the vision now. And
mm,
that's very hard. It feels like, how do we hope that the technology gets there and we execute on it before our funding runs out?
mm. And how do you see them managing also with leading people in that circumstance where they're chasing the puck and they're kind of building the plane as they go? Like, how are they bringing along their people, the teams? Do you see any challenges there, or is that an opportunity?
I'm actually almost, as far as AI goes, seeing it go the other way around. I think with almost every other big technology innovation, it's been a little bit more pushed top down at these companies, where the senior executive team kind of sees it coming first, and then there's change management, and they're trying to get everybody on board to the new thing, and it can take a while. I'm seeing it happen differently this time. I'm actually seeing it going bottom up, where the employees in the organizations are actually already diving in, using AI more and more. And they're actually outpacing, in a lot of cases, the senior executives at their own companies who are trying to catch up. And so maybe one of what I'm seeing in terms of leading teams, the CEOs that seem to be doing the best right now are okay letting the team teach them, and are
Mm,
finding a strategy in today's day and age to get us all working together collaboratively, like on AI and technology and keeping up to date. We're all doing it together. They're not leading from top down. They're really leading by creating the community that we all work together.
mm. And is this something that you've seen just over the past, like, year? Because AI has been around now, I mean, it's only been a couple years and it's accelerating. So is it really recent, the changes that you've seen, or
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think probably maybe over the last really 8 to 12 months is really
Okay.
when I started seeing a lot of CEOs noticing that their team is using these tools in the background to help be better at their jobs and also keep up with their careers. And
Mhm.
that's scary because a lot of times these employees, maybe they're not digging into as much also how these tools use the data that is being shared with them. So
Mm,
I think also it's caused a lot of fear because we're uploading company information into these, free versions or low versions of a lot of these
mm,
LLMs and AI tools, and they trade on that data. And
mm,
so I think that's also been like a big recent wake up call. I've only heard people start talking about that, at least among the CEOs that I work with, the past like 3 months. If they've been in AI, they've been thinking about it a long time. But for all the rest of us, it's really
mm.
been pretty new.
Okay. Um, and so where do you think the opportunity is in this? Because what I'm hearing is the dynamic is different. Before it was very top down and a lot of there was that um hierarchy is probably not the word, but a lot of times it was, the CEO sets the vision. This is our 3 year plan. And now, if what I'm hearing and what you're seeing, the change is shifting, it's bottom up. So where is the real opportunity um, for companies? Like, how can this be something really positive to help them in their growth?
Well, the most positive thing I'm seeing from it is actually, hey, we're all actually working together. So creating cross-functional teams,
Mm,
and then that's so exciting. Hey,
mm,
what can we do with this? And let's allow ourselves to be messy. One of the really neatest uh, kind of silo breakdowns I'm seeing is more and more of the departments wanting to partner with the developers to help
wow.
with creating some of these internal tools, and I'm seeing that in ways I'd actually never seen other departments really collaborate with
Mm,
developers or with engineering, or even IT in larger organizations. So I'm seeing this facilitating like a silo breakdown in a lot of companies, and the CEOs that seem to be really handling it best are, you know, allowing not they're not fighting that, they're actually allowing the uncertainty and the messiness to happen with maybe a few guardrails in place as
mm,
well.
mm. Okay. And do you think that is it only in tech companies? Because I think you work with a lot of startups and scale ups. Is Do you see, I would say, that happening in those types of environments, or do you see it happening also in maybe I'm thinking of, a bigger, maybe a well-established company that has their way of doing things and that, likes it to be done a certain way. Do you see any differences in the profile of the companies?
Yeah, but like, maybe helpful context, about half of those that I work with or have worked with have been venture backed, but the other half have been basically more established companies. Some have gotten
Okay.
private equity, and some have maybe bootstrapped for many years. Um, and I guess what I'm seeing with some of the more established companies is a few things. Each one's different. But what I am seeing be similar is that there's more resistance if you're an established company, especially if you're in an industry like the trades, for example,
Mm,
or industries that have depended a lot on physical labor or a lot of maybe sharing your kind of mental labor. I'm seeing more resistance generally in those industries by senior leadership and the employees.
mm,
I don't think it's not that they're not interested or against it. they might just not be in the news cycle, in the circles enough to see what it can do yet.
Yeah.
Um, and so it sounds a little hypey to them, and then
Uh,
so there's a little more resistance on wanting to go a little bit slower, so I am seeing a difference there. However, kind of the plus side to that is, maybe they're more easily impressed, and
uh,
so if you are selling solutions that are essentially AI enabled solutions or selling AI solutions to organizations, there is a huge opportunity right now because if you show them what AI can do, they're not gonna think they can go build it themselves. They're gonna love
mm,
what you're showing them, and I'm seeing a lot of them being willing to buy, especially the more established companies. They're happy to buy new tools if you can prove that it can deliver value and help
uh,
their team focus on more of their highest and best use. They'll pay for that right now. And you're not gonna see a ton of, friction, at least from what I'm seeing in that sales process. You might more so with the technology companies with big engineering teams in
yeah.
the news cycle, see how fast it's going. I'm seeing them be a lot more hesitant to onboard maybe new, ventures or new ideas or new uses of AI because they might just wanna wait and see because they know how fast it's going.
Okay. Um, and so a lot of the listeners of the podcast are senior people in senior organizations, and or senior people in organizations, and I think there's a lot of fear still around a couple things: bringing AI in, change management, communicating also with the teams. If you had maybe one or two recommendations that you would make to somebody who's maybe a VP or SVP, um, so who's involved, but maybe not making all of the investment decisions, what would you say to them in terms of, what do they say to their teams? How do they integrate it? Like, what is a key message maybe for the VP, SVP levels in the company?
Yeah. Well, I think first and foremost, learn it yourselves. And you can. Even if you're not technical, you can learn it. You can actually ask these tools to help you learn it. And so the number one best piece of advice is just start playing with it and dive into the mess. Sign up for the
Mm,
tools, see what it can do, research the other tools more. There is nothing more powerful than if you don't have to be the world's best expert in it, but it's so helpful if you get how it all works because then you're gonna
yeah,
be able to see for yourself and build your kind of own opinions about how it can help, what might be too hypey right now and it's actually not as good. Because there's a lot of
mhm,
noise out there around AI, and using it yourself and seeing for yourself, I think, is one of the best antidotes to building your own point of view for your organizations. I think it'll
yeah,
also help you just more effectively lead and have these conversations within your organization because you'll be able to talk about these things and
yeah,
say the right new words for, label things correctly. I think that'll also just go a long way. And you can totally do it. You don't need to be an engineer to learn this stuff. And
yeah,
so I think that's number one. I think number two, um, from what I'm seeing, the wave is coming. It's happening.
mhm,
I think what you want to try and avoid doing, when I was working with CEOs and senior leaders when social media was just coming around, for example,
mhm.
right? I saw a lot of resistance of this is silly and it's a fad. And of course, a lot of those executives ended up having trouble finding jobs later until they got back on board, right? So this is one of those times. like,
Yeah, mm,
and so but now is the time and you're not too late at all. You're right on the cutting edge.
mm,
I think you have a real opportunity, just even for your career, to be on the front end of this wave and lead from the front. Please don't resist it just for your own benefit. It becomes less scary as you build up your own knowledge base about how it works. That's the best
mm,
antidote to fear. In this case, I think is going to be your own knowledge. So I
yeah,
think that's probably my number one recommendation. And then of course the stuff we talked about too with, hey, make this something it can be something your message to the team can be, "This is scary," or your message to the
Mm,
team can be, "This is exciting," and sometimes fear comes along with something new and excitement, but remember, like, how closely those are related, like, sometimes excitement feels like fear. So
yeah.
maybe there's also a reframe for your team on how exciting this can be, not just for the company, but also for each of them individually. This is, like, a
Mm,
good time, I think, to remind people, like, "Hey, this is the cutting edge, and you have an opportunity to be one of the, team members and one of the experts in your field who leads in this area. You have that opportunity right now. And so you can also then tie back your gain and the company's gain to their gain as like what's in it for them. I think
mm,
working as a team, what an impact that you can have as a leader in 2026 by helping your team get up to date with the latest and greatest. That's going to be a huge legacy for you and impact on their careers by
mm.
changing that narrative for them.
Okay. Um, okay, great. My second, I would say kind of theme that I wanted your opinion on is in terms of management and leadership, generally, because things have changed. People are working from home. Um, people are having a hard time focusing. Since COVID, people have different opinions about work-life balance. I mean, it has been an insane 5 or 6 years,
No kidding.
and I'm just curious, um, because you do also management training. What are maybe I would say the key challenges if a company is coming to you and wants to put some of their employees through training and invest in them, what is the reasoning behind it?
Yeah. Well, there's a few primary reasons. Um, One of the maybe unexpected things that we've found is as culture building. And so let's say you are running an organization and maybe you have 15 managers that are in your org underneath you. And the reason we started Oxygen was because, becoming a manager in general is a terrible experience for everybody as it currently exists. It's just terrible. Like you're promoted to a new job with little to no training and support and then have higher expectations. Nobody has time to give you any sort of coaching. It is
Yeah.
a huge, steep learning curve that's underappreciated at the beginning. And then the organization runs into scaling pains and everyone's confused why. Well, the reason why is because you've promoted all these people with little to no training and development and no
Right.
accountability. And accountability helps us all perform better just being held accountable, not even
Yeah.
in the negative connotation. And so that's why we really started Oxygen was because I just kept seeing that in the companies I worked with. And
Okay.
so I think then, okay, so one of the main reasons that we're seeing initially is, of course, we want our managers to get that training and development, but also so we have like a similar language of leadership within the company.
Mm,
We're all speaking the same language. And then back to that culture piece, a lot of these organizations are finding that because we run cross company cohorts or certain companies will buy a private cohort just for them and we'll even come and do some of it in person. Now
mm,
all of a sudden in this remote world, it's a big culture and leadership and also fun thing to do as a team
yeah.
and opportunity to come together in person.
Okay.
Um, that's just for the leaders. The
Yeah.
impact that this has on the level down from them is also quite profound because as these leaders move from trying to smooth the waters and make everybody happy or try to just continue to be the one that knows the most in their department, that kind of individual contributor,
Mm,
as they move from that
mm,
to actually getting results through others and helping extend the values and culture of the company down into those doing the actual work. I think what you also find is that even sometimes if senior leadership sometimes is good at this thing or bad at this thing, or maybe senior leadership themselves sometimes isn't the best manager, but they might be great leaders.
mm,
That level down, they can still be really solid, even with that messiness up on the leadership level. And it really
okay.
does a lot for the culture and the stability in the organization. There's a lot of reasons, but I think, improving performance, of course, but I think same leadership language, and then I also think that culture. And I have one more thing. What we've started seeing, we gather a lot of data of those managers going through oxygen. What we started to see is by like a meaningful margin. Currently, it's about maybe 60% of those who finish the program say they are significantly more likely and much more likely to stay at the
Mm.
company. And we'll hear even
Oh,
anecdotally, even on LinkedIn, some of the students will post like, "I can't believe my company would invest in me like this." And so I
mm,
think from just a retention standpoint of your
yeah,
leadership pipeline, that's also something I didn't necessarily consider going into it, but the data is showing as an impact.
and I think it's such a great point, because it's true that people I've also got, as close to 30 years experience in management, and companies just automatically assume that if you're, an excellent individual contributor or you have some kind of expertise, then you're next in line for management position, and it is such a challenging role, and
Yeah.
I just think that it's from my point of view, but I would like to know what you think. It has become even more challenging since COVID. I
Yeah.
think just, the work from home is challenging. Um, People are looking a lot of times now for purpose, not just a paycheck. There's just all of these things that have piled on. And um So, yeah, do you think it's more challenging, or do you think, no, it's always been like that and there's just things that keep coming and we just deal with it, those external influences as they come?
Yeah. Oh, I think it's more challenging, especially in
Yeah.
remote environments.
Yeah.
It's more challenging because, as a manager before, I could get the vibe of the team in a way just by we're all together and talking
Yeah.
about how the weekend went. It was also it was a bit of a double-edged sword because if I'm really good with culture, I can build a much stronger culture much more quickly, especially when I'm adding new people to the team. It's like
Yeah.
they're in the office, they're talking to everybody. I mean, they're immediately plopped into the culture, and then it's a strong center of gravity, this culture that we've created, whatever
Mm,
that is. Now, it's a double-edged sword too because if I'm creating a negative culture or if there's like gossip, for example, would spread a
yeah.
lot faster. So it was a bit of a double-edged sword because also when you're in person, you had to deal with also a lot more of just the human nature stuff, which is
Yeah.
like, we like drama and gossip a little bit and like that would kind of spread. Or if there's something negative or bad news would spread a lot faster, even if it wasn't true, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
But I think it's a lot harder overall. I think it was easier even to catch that stuff, whereas now, you bring somebody on and,
Mhm.
you might have a few meetings with them, but then they're just sitting at their home behind their desk with no one to talk to and no coworkers. It's like it takes a lot longer and a lot more effort to onboard them into that culture.
Mm.
And I also think some people do well at home and some people don't. One thing I will say, though, is people do forget that we have had plenty of remote management before.
Yeah.
In large organizations I'd work with, if they had a global presence, I would often work with like, in the Bay Area would be the senior leader and like they'd have team members all over the world that
Yeah.
they'd have to try and figure this out as well. So I do want to add that in. This isn't like brand new, but
Yeah.
it is way more widespread than it was in
Yeah.
the past. And
Yeah.
um, yeah, I just think that that's probably the thing that makes it some of the maybe the most difficult. I also think that caring for ourselves and managing our own mental health as leaders and managers has in a lot of ways become maybe a little bit more difficult also just for us. Not even we're talking about the
Um,
team a lot, I get it. But like
okay.
what about us? It's like I work with leaders all the time who are struggling because they're trying to hold everybody else up in a remote environment, but they themselves are also struggling in the remote environment and who's helping
Mhm.
them? Often there's like a real miss if you're listening and you're a CEO or C-level executive, like when's the last time you've checked in with the layer underneath you? I think at the senior leadership level, we often don't care for each other as much as we should. We're focused on
Mm,
caring for the managers down below, and I think that's something that I'm really, really seeing. It's also we were in an office, I'd get a lot of, as you move up in an organization, the wins are further and between. They might
yeah.
be bigger, but I might be working on a year-long initiative here. Like, I'm not gonna get
Mhm.
this payoff and any kudos for maybe a year and a half.
Yeah.
And so what I used to get was my team. My team would be able to, like, I'd see them having fun, or even just them walking by my office and being like, "Hey, Nick, how's it going? Like, how was your weekend?" That was helpful moments of, like, emotional boost
Yeah.
while I'm waiting for that year and a half payoff, and those are not as prevalent now, especially if you're working remote, and so you don't get the positive feelings of, like, walking by and seeing the team jiving and working well
Mm,
together. "Oh, I created that." You don't get that, and so I've been seeing also mental health challenges with the
yeah.
leadership level because of it.
Do you think that there's more I don't like to use the word stress because, I think it's overused, but, um, more topics, more challenges, more overwhelm? Or do you think that it's simply it's always been like that? We're just more aware that managing our mental health is important, and we just haven't really learned, or a lot of people haven't learned yet how to do it.
No, I think it's way worse now. It's
Okay.
not it's way
Yeah.
harder now, and it's
Yeah.
because of social media and the news cycle is my opinion, right?
Mm,
Like, what happens for a lot of the CEOs I work with is, like, you've got a strategy, you're dealing with the stuff we all deal with, but maybe don't publicly talk about, and how hard it is, or you're a senior leader or
mm,
VP. It's always been hard, right? But now what happens? Well, now I go, onto LinkedIn, and I'm seeing everyone's update about how much money they're fundraising. It's like Instagram, it's like business Instagram, right? People people aren't posting the real thing,
yeah.
and same thing, you go to these networking events and everyone has to be crushing it. And
Yeah.
everyone has to be on top of AI. Everyone's talking about a big game about AI, but then privately they're freaking out. So people aren't
Mm,
sharing. So what happens is I think it's a lot harder now to help your mental health as a leader because we're
mm,
plugged into this news cycle that is incentivized
mm,
to keep us addicted to it, so it can kind of sell us
yeah.
ads and keep us paying the things. It's just like social media on the consumer side. This is social media for
Mm,
business. So now I'm seeing
uh,
these business fads come in, and they just hit a lot harder and cause everyone to freak out, and it
yeah.
always feels like you're at risk of being behind or not being good enough.
Mm.
I'm seeing that. I think it's way harder now.
And do you think people recognize it, or are you just seeing it? So, meaning, do
Yeah,
people,
that's a good question.
do they realize that they're caught up in that, or they haven't been taking care of their mental health?
I don't think that a lot of people realize it.
No.
I think if you say it, they quickly are like, "Oh yeah, they can reflect." um, I think I think a lot of people, were our genetic inheritance has us on a dominance hierarchy, right? So we're constantly comparing ourselves to others to see where we fit in the scheme of things and
Mm,
are we safe? And oh my gosh, like with social media, it's just completely hijacked
yeah.
it to the point where we won't notice that we're kind of in one of those spirals. And
Mm,
I'll give you one really good example. I was talking with the senior leader the other day who's been using the LLMs as part as a great thought partner. And it is a great thought partner if you know how to prompt it right. Right, because they're also yes and machines. And
yeah.
so I'm talking with this executive and she was all spun up because she's just like, "Oh my gosh, like everything's like completely changing. Everything that we do is like not going to be it's going to be totally obsolete in like a year. I'm like worried about my career." I'm like, "Okay, well hold on a second. Like maybe, but like let's also can we look at the prompts, how to do, and the prompts were basically her being like, I'm really afraid that this will be like obsolete, in a few years. And I'm seeing this and basically fed the LLM all this
Yeah.
information about how her job's going to be obsolete. And so just kind of more or less tried to calm her down a little bit, but more like parroted back the same thing. So,
Oh,
hey, let's prompt it different. Like, let's do it again. let's do it again, but this time I want you to come from the other side. Hey, what we do, here's the parts of what we do that will never be automated, like be overly like
Mm,
positive to on the other side. And then she got a different response on the other end. It had all
uh,
these reasons about, oh, here's some things about how you'll be able to grow together. So I think we already have social media freaking us out and making us feel less than. And then you
uh,
get these LLMs that are yes and machines that are very, very good at reading between the lines of our prompts to what our actual fears are and
um,
and just spinning us up. And so I see it getting worse. I think that with proper
mm,
education around how to prompt these things, it would really help a lot. And I think we
mhm,
always need constant reminders about, that remember that social media is just a giant PR machine for everyone and it's all
yeah,
the positive stuff. The last
mm.
thing I'll add, one of the things I do with my coaching clients is every 6 months, a complete detox reset. I
Okay,
have like, yeah,
meaning? Tell us
is
about that.
yeah, so I have an agenda that I give everybody, and you kinda choose your own adventure, like, depending on how much time you can take off. Um, but what really helps is to, be away from everything. Usually, it's even a you might be on a trip, so you go on a personal
Mm,
retreat, and you need to allow yourself to be bored for an extended period of time. So you need to
mm,
do a technical detox. You need to not plan it, don't have, like, an agenda, just show up with nothing to do and be totally, spirit-led. "Oh, I kinda wanna
mm,
go to a bookstore right now." Great, get up and go to a bookstore. "I wanna go on a hike." Don't plan it ahead of time.
okay,
Allow yourself to be extremely bored because, that's what's needed to actually process and get
mm,
back to a healthy mental baseline for executives. We just get stuck in the loop, in thought loops, and then just can't get out of it, and this is how you
wow,
get out of that.
I love it, I love it. Okay, great, all right, so any last minute thoughts before I ask you, if anybody wants to work with you or how they can find you, but any last minute thoughts based on our conversation today?
I think, I love where our conversation went.
Mm,
I think that, as leaders, maybe the last thought that's coming up as leaders, we have power. We do have
yeah.
power. Now, there's always people with more power, but we have a lot of power, and so a lot of people depend on you to help lead them through a scary time like this.
Mm,
And so I think it's a very high ROI for you and for your team to be, w- you know, kind of being brave and learning about these tools for yourself and coming up with the positive frame for you and your
mm,
team and the hope, finding the hope in what's going on because there is a lot of hope in what's going on. You're going
mm,
to hear negative stuff because it'll sell eyeballs. There's a
yeah.
lot of hope going on too. And so find the hope and then share that with your team because you can help your team. You have a big impact on their mental health. And I think this is one area where even just this week, could you come up with a narrative of hope this month to your team about
Mm.
AI and where things are going? And that's a gift you could be giving them. And I think that's a good takeaway.
I love it. I love it. Find the hope because it's true. Everything is fear based. And that's
Yeah.
where the brain goes, but also that's everything that's so it becomes
Oh,
actually a mental discipline also to kind
yeah.
of, stop that. I like to think of it as Star Wars, you've got this like force field around you and you kind of have to be very oh, yeah, aware of all of that negativity. So I love your message about find the hope. So thank you for that. I'm going to steal that and use it.
Oh, good. Perfect.
Yeah, fantastic. So tell us if somebody wanted to work with you, tell us a little bit about your business and how they could get in contact with you.
Yeah, the best way is you can find me on LinkedIn. Please reach out on LinkedIn. It's just my first and last name, Nick Herinckx. Or you can look up Oxygen, Lead with Oxygen is the LinkedIn page. Or just go to our website, leadwithoxygen.com. and you can kind of see what we're about. Those are the best ways. I think what would be a trigger that you would want to reach out? I think if you have a lot of transitions happening, like the high ROI
Mm,
transitions in your company, for example, like individual contributor to first time leader, that is what we help with. We make that an amazing journey and experience. We take what would normally take many years of like trial and error and hard knocks, and we can
mm,
get people there in 6 months. And so that is one reason. I think another time to reach out is if you have a team and you realized, hey, I have a lot of managers and they really haven't all received training, or it's been patchy, their growth and development, and you want to get them all on a high performing same page
mm.
and with the same language of leadership. That would be like another reason to reach out, and we'll help you with that.
Great. Well, thank you so much for being here today. A fantastic conversation.
Yeah.
And yeah, I can only recommend also because I know Oxygen very well and lead with Oxygen, and the team is fantastic. So don't hesitate to reach out, and I'll put all of those links also in the show notes. Thank you so much, Nick.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you too.